How are we doing, everybody? Welcome into another episode here from the SFS channel. In this particular episode, I'm going to be walking you through my 5 wide receivers on the bust radar for this week's games. Players that I don't think have great game scripts, great matchups, whatever the case might be. We'll break all that information down in today's episode. If you're new around here, make sure you drop on down, click that subscribe button. It helps me out a ton here, takes 2 seconds. And turn that bell on as well so you're never late for a new piece of content. I'm posting multiple fantasy football advice episodes every single day of the week here for the entire 2022 NFL season. So I appreciate you guys trying to help you out, crush and win your leagues this year. By all means, questions for me, put those down in the comment section below. Myself or a friend will get back to you and help you out with your teams this week and again, this entire season. So thanks so much for popping in. Let's get started. Alrighty, as we always do with our lineup advice episodes every week, transparency time. We talk through and recap our picks from the last week's games. We did okay in the sit department for the week. We went 3 out of our 5 picks from week 4 for a 60% success ratio. It was one of our down weeks of the season overall, though, at just a 58% correct rate. So below my bar, of course, I'm hoping and expecting to be above 60%, 65% plus would be great. And heck, weeks where, we're at 70, 75% are stuff to celebrate here. But not exactly our best week overall. Again, though, we did go 3 out of 5 for a plus 50% positive rate. Our 2 misses from this past week were Adam Thielen, who we've got on the sit list again for this week. Did have himself a very solid game against New Orleans. I probably should have seen that one coming or at least called an audible as we got more information out throughout the rest of the week. I thought that just overall, the matchup heading in seemed tough on paper against New Orleans, and then you get information about various things the Saints are dealing with in terms of offensively and their game script issues, and all of the stuff combines here to make the situation for a player each week. So Thielen we missed on, and then Allen Lazard, just plain and simple, that game didn't play out at all the way I was expecting it to. Packers were 10-point favorites. I thought they'd be running the ball, milking the clock away, and salting away a win, and lo and behold, we go to overtime, and literally at the horn, the Packers kick the game-winning field goal. Lazard goes over 100 yards. I believe it was 6 receptions. Bad stuff there. Honestly, probably could have saw that one coming. Hindsight in 2020, of course, as always. But I should have known that it would be a bit closer game than that. Probably still wouldn't have recommended to start Allen Lazard, but at least my evaluation of the game script definitely seems wrong in hindsight. So here for Chicago in Minnesota, taking on the Vikings at home. I will be sitting Adam Thielen this week, whereas I had my doubts about the New England Patriots' ability to keep up with the Packers last week. I don't doubt the Vikings' ability to pull away from the Chicago offense. Now, the one area where I think Adam Thielen could prove me wrong here is if in the first 2 or 2.5 quarters of this game he scores a touchdown, he'll be a flex-worthy play here. If not, though, I think Minnesota controls the tempo of this game. They're 7-point favorites right now, again, at home in US Bank Stadium. That's a big deal here. Chicago's offense is extremely poor right now. They've got one of the worst passing offenses since like the 1950s. This is just an atrocious offense in the passing game led by Justin Fields, and it's really not his fault. They're limiting his opportunities. The pass protection is god-awful, and even when they fall behind in big games, they continue to just run the football. So there's a strong chance that if Minnesota gets out to a 14-0 lead, the Bears don't change their thought process and their approach. They stick to their game plan to a fault here, knowing full and well they want to run the ball, and they don't stop when that's not working. So I think that if Minnesota gets and establishes a large lead here, he's fine, or Thielen will be fine in terms of being a sit candidate for the week, because they'll be able to just coast and use their run game to milk this game away. Now, if Adam Thielen is a part of the party that gets things started here, if he scores a touchdown, if he's that red zone magnet that we know him to be at times here, and a guy who makes a big catch or something like that, I do think he needs the touchdown to be able to score in enough points to be a lineup-worthy play. Last week was a very close game between the Saints and Vikings. He was involved throughout. I think then, again, that'll be the difference maker in the outcome for this game. However, if you're in a tough situation deciding between 4 wide receivers here, Thielen looks like the most touchdown-dependent play of your group. I'd look to sit him and move on to a different option. Gabe Davis, another player trending down my rankings right now, as a matter of fact. Loved him coming into the season to an extent as an upside piece. However, the upside has not hit since week 1. There was an ankle injury. There was a quiet game. There's a quiet game after that. And Gabe Davis taking on Pittsburgh this week, it's a very similar outlook to how I see Adam Thielen now. As opposed to the Vikings being 7-point favorites at home against Chicago, Gabe Davis and the Bills are 14-point favorites, 2 whole touchdown and extra point plays favorited over Kenny Pickett and the rookie Kenny Pickett and the Pittsburgh Steelers here. So why is this important? Again, I think that the Bills offense is going to totally crush this team. I think that you're just feeding Pickett to the wolves. Lapses offensively, mistakes will be made against a very buttoned up Bills defensive unit. And I think that they have easy opportunities, takeaways, short fields, and Gabe Davis is going to have to make a play in the first 2.5, oh gosh, maybe even if we give him a full 3 quarters in this game, I still don't know if it'd be enough. But basically, it's going to have to come off of limited opportunities as well. Stephon Diggs is so clear, far and away, the alpha wide receiver for this team in terms of just opportunities in the volume department. I remember seeing guys in the summertime saying like Gabe Davis, wide receiver 1 season for Buffalo, and that stuff was just clownish behavior. But anyways, but totally besides the point here. I think Gabe Davis will struggle in this contest. We've seen him, I believe, his high for the season in the game when he's been healthy is 6 targets on the year. The production just hasn't been there. This is a Pittsburgh secondary that I do think is, able to be capitalized upon by Gabe Davis. If he's going to make a big play, he's certainly capable of doing so in this matchup. But again, you're going to have not full 4 quarters or 4 full quarters. I flipped my words there to make that happen. And I think that it's just going to be a situation where the game script is so positive for Buffalo that it limits the passing attempts that they may have had in a closer, more contested game. DK Metcalf taking on the Saints this week. I'm a bit worried about DK. He's hit the last 2 weeks here, had 2 stinkers to start the season. Seems like a lot of us are forgetting about those bad games because of the track record lately. 22 targets between the last 2 games, 200 plus receiving yards. It's been great. It's been smooth sailing here. However, I think the Saints throw the wrench in the game plan this week. Watching that Saints matchup, what we saw was this team get absolutely eaten up by Justin Jefferson and the Minnesota Vikings. Again, in the London game, the early morning game from this past week. And it was really surprising that despite after seeing the Detroit Lions have success against Justin Jefferson in week 3, excuse me, they by pressing Justin Jefferson and not leaving space off the line of scrimmage, the Saints then come out and give him cushion, and the route runner absolutely eats him up. 10 receptions, is a rushing touchdown as well, 140 or almost 150 yards receiving. It was bad. So schematically, kind of a lapse in a boo-boo on the end of the Saints coaching staff here. But what I do feel confident in this game is Marshawn Lattimore's ability to cover DK Metcalf. Now, the reason for that is if we looked through Marshawn Lattimore's career, his success comes against larger physical wide receivers that he can also get into and avoid getting calls from the referee because it's, co-physical play. Both guys are mashing into each other, playing physical, bumping and running, and getting tangled up downfield, as opposed to a route runner that's more finesse. You can't really grab, pull, and punch and any of that stuff because jerseys will be evidently tugged, guys will fall down, you'll have some bigger issues happening. So Lattimore, think about Mike Evans, the success he's had in matchups historically, and that sense of things throughout his career. That's more similar to what DK Metcalf is versus what Justin Jefferson does for this team and was able to do against them last week. So it's not going to be entirely shadow coverage throughout the majority of this contest. I do think Seattle's offense has some significant regression this week, though. They scored 48 points last week. Not something I'm expecting to happen in this game. The Seahawks are 5.5-point underdogs. I think that this number is a bit screwy for the week. I think the Saints are a bad team. I think Seattle's a bad team. I think it's rough sledding here and honestly might be a low-scoring contest. So it'll honestly also, a factor of this will be who is the quarterback for the Saints. Is Jameis ready to go? Is it going to be Andy Dalton again? All that stuff will play a factor to an extent here, but regardless, I am feeling pretty pessimistic on DK Metcalf in this New Orleans matchup here in Week 5. And then Brandon Aiyuk, San Francisco taking on Carolina. The Panthers are 6.5-point dogs in this game. I think it's uglier than that. San Francisco, I think, is just going to totally control the tempo, the pace, and just really be the dominant team in this football game. And for me, I don't want to have a team's number 2 option in the passing game in my fantasy lineup if that's the case. Aiyuk has flex utility in spaces and spots. This week is not the case for me. Again, this offense runs through Deebo Samuel. I think this team gets out to a big lead. I think the physicality creates a lot of, defensively I'm talking here, their physicality, their pass rush ability, their playmaking ability. I think they're going to get Baker Mayfield 1, 2, maybe even 3 times. I think there's going to be a majority. Let's say it this way. The turnover battle is going to be won easily by San Francisco in this game. Short fields, red zone opportunities, all of it. I think it's just going to be an absolute teardown of Carolina and the Baker Mayfield-led Panthers. Maybe I'm being a bit hyperbolic here and extreme. However, in that type of a matchup, you're going to be so touchdown dependent if you're Brandon Aiyuk, and you're going to need to find the end zone, score 6 points in an easy play, and make the most of that chance if you're going to be productive. So I'm going to stay off of him here. I'm going to be skeptical and pessimistic on him here for this week's game. And then Allen Robinson, I think this is the last time I'll probably talk about him in a sit episode this season. I wanted one more swing at it here to kind of talk through my last kind of piece of the puzzle of evaluation that I've seen. We talked about him. We had a panic episode last week and just sit episodes here the last couple of weeks now, although we did miss him on a start video at the start of the season. Allen Robinson, for me, there's two glaring issues that were pointed out, and I think that, honestly, it's a comment by Troy Aikman that really illustrated why A-Rob is having such a down season. And first and foremost, he is still an elite route runner. This is a guy that can separate if given enough time to create it. His footwork, he'll cross up a defensive back. He'll create space in that sense of things, from being a technician and from being a really solid wide receiver. Like, he really plays the position to its fullest. However, in situations, short and intermediate route running opportunities, Matt Stafford literally turns and looks at Cooper Kupp every single time. Like, that is his first, second, and third read. Is Cooper Kupp, look him off, back to Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, look off the safety, back to Cooper Kupp. Allen Robinson is just not a factor in this offense. And as we're talking about him as a sit candidate here, we haven't even mentioned Dallas once. They're playing the Dallas Cowboys, the Cooper Rush-led Cowboys, it sounds like, again this week, at home against LA. So back to Allen Robinson and this Troy Aikman comment. So there was a really interesting play where Troy's talking about how they need to get Allen more involved in this offense. They need to get him more passes. And he shows this clip of Allen Robinson basically beating the defensive back in press man coverage with this footwork and that elite route running prowess. And the problem here, again, is that Allen Robinson is like literally the third option in terms of area of work at that particular opportunity in those scenarios. So when short and intermediate passes are what Stafford's trying to throw, read 1, Cooper Kupp. Read 2, Cooper Kupp, look off the safety. Read 3, Tyler Higbee in the flat. Like, that has been the progression so far this season. And the only opportunities we're seeing Allen Robinson really get precedence over Kupp in is goal line fades in the red zone. And that's just not going to cut it, because the majority of the time, there's that's the tightest area of the field, the most difficult spot to work with in the league. He did have one really nice touchdown catch against the Falcons, should have had a second, but besides the point, that's not great. If you're telling me I gotta flip a coin and roll the dice and hope to God that on 6 targets, 3 of them are on goal line fades in the red zone to score a touchdown, I'm not liking that too much. So the last part of this is the fact that Allen Robinson just seemingly can't get open deep. That's been kind of the hardest thing for me, the spot where I think I missed on him during the draft process, because I'll be right up front and honest with you guys. I loved A-Rob this season. I thought he was a very good value pick. I thought it would be a 1A and a 1B type situation between Kupp and A-Rob. I thought Cooper Kupp would have some drop-off this year due to Allen Robinson's 100-plus target season that I thought was incoming here. And that just hasn't been the case, because the Rams' offense has shown a need for a vertical weapon. And with A-Rob, again, his routes are solid, but the amount of time it would take him to separate deep with that finesse route running is longer than Stafford has in the pocket, frankly, because the offensive line play has been so bad this year. So if you're not winning vertically, that's the one spot that is really out for the taking this offense. Cooper Kupp can win vertically, of course, but every defensive back on the team is at least giving him some attention, respect, and everyone's thinking about him. So it has to be that next guy that steps up here, and A-Rob hasn't been able to do that. It seems like he's lost some of that juice, and just even a half step or a step of his speed and quickness has really shot his fantasy value for this situation. It's just frankly not the right team down into the toilet, because if he was the true number one for another offense, it's possible that he could be a volume play and a guy that soaks up a lot of opportunities in that area of the field. But he hasn't been able to do that. Stafford's not looking at him in the situations where he finds work and gets open. So that's the part where things kind of go amiss here. And in this Dallas matchup, even though the Cowboys, have some weaker Back-end players, Anthony Brown particularly has been a guy that's been susceptible to big plays. Trayvon Diggs has been susceptible to big plays as well. A-Rob can't beat them on big plays. He can't win vertically, and if he doesn't get those looks underneath, it's all for nothing. And besides the fact, this Cowboys pass rush will not let Matthew Stafford have the time to get through his progressions and get to a downfield player this week. So none of that stuff matters. Allen Robinson is frankly, for me, kind of an irrelevant lineup piece for the week. And like I said, I'm not going to continue talking about him here every week. I think that there's a point here, and maybe you feel that point's already passed, so you're annoyed that I'm talking about Allen Robinson again here. But I did kind of have an evolution of thought process after watching Aikman's breakdown and just checking out some other stuff and kind of synthesizing that information from the season. So A-Rob was a failed disaster here. I'm out on him. Who knows? Maybe they adjust and evolve as an offense and prove me wrong. But I'm pretty skeptical here. So thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. To recap, Adam Thielen, Gabe Davis, DK Metcalf, Brandon Aiyuk, and Allen Robinson are my sit wide receivers for Week 5 fantasy football. If you enjoyed, click the like button, smash the subscribe button. As always, check out our Fantasy Football Week 5 playlist in the description of today's episode, and check out some of our other videos. We'd love to have you guys there asking your questions and being involved, a member of the SFS community here. We've got a Discord server, other social media platforms in the description of today's episode, and a bunch of great stuff to take advantage of. So thanks so much, you guys. I'll see you next time. Peace out.